I'm Dr. Laura Gifford. The results that we have gotten in this place clinically have been astounding. We need to eat food that's real. Ditch the sugars and the grain. Fat doesn't make you fat. Fat does not cause heart disease. You literally are what you eat. Let's talk about insulin and where it comes from and what happens in the body.
I'm Dr. Jillian Murphy. This is definitely not what I was taught in school.
This is what I thought that food should be able to do for people.
There's that old adage, you are what you eat, but you really actually are what you digest.
The ultimate health combination is vegetables plus protein plus healthy fat. Cholesterol gets such a bad rap.
All of our sex hormones come from cholesterol. Healthy poop versus not so healthy poop. Any questions about that?
I'm Michelle McAlpin. 80% of our body composition is based on what we eat. Move frequently at a slow pace. Lift heavy things. Resistance training. It's not too late. You can put muscle mass on at any age. You really don't need weights or machines. Posture is really, really important.
If it comes from a factory and has an ingredients list, it's not whole food. It's not the way nature intended it. And you'd be amazed. We are abundant the amount of food we actually have that comes from the earth or roams the earth. That's really what we're designed to eat. Okay, let's start. Let's go right into things. Stress makes you fat. There you go. Done. So, and we'll talk about why we're going to do stress and sleep tonight. So, I thought this is one of Jill's slides. Actually, it's funny. There are only 2 times that I feel stressed, day and night. So. Women are really particularly getting this is bad for women. The number one, the highest stress rate is in groups of women between 20 and 50, apparently. Like, it's the highest stress rate.
That's no more stress for you.
Yeah, but it is true, like after 50, your kids apparently, like it's apparently things get a little easier. Apparently, they're supposed to.
Yeah, I'm getting married this year. I don't think it's getting easier.
But the number, the number one category who are on like antidepressants, anti-anxiety is women between 20 and 40. Yeah, really, really, really high. I'm often shocked about the number of sort of 20-year-old Queen students that we have who are really, really, really struggling with depression, anxiety, teenagers, this sort of stuff. It's this stress. So causes of stress, we obviously know all these things. Change, unpredictability. The number one cause of stress obviously is a marriage breakdown, but moving is moving. Oftentimes people will move and it just causes so much for selling a house, that sort of thing. Grief, which we were talking about earlier, death of a spouse. I think this is a really, 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 really big one for moms, like young women, and this just drives me crazy. We're kind of through that with our kids, but you see these young mums come in with 1, 2, 3-year-old kids, and the judgment that passes through there, and the judgment they're feeling, and the anxiety that they have. I've been seeing a lot of colicky babies lately, and I swear it's just their parents. It's like, you just need to leave your kid alone for a couple of days, and your kid will stop crying. Like they're just, everyone's so anxious and so stressed. So there's lots of causes of it. There's more and more now constantly. I think Facebook is a really big cause of stress. Like, I think a lot of people go on there and they just feel like shit because people just post all this lovely stuff about their fake lives that aren't really true. And it's like, I think I think it's causing a lot of, especially again, young women, judging themselves and comparing I think it's one of the worst things you can do is compare your inside to someone else's outside. It was advice I got from my father years ago, and we don't know. You can't look at someone's outside and really know what's going on there. People put on good fronts. You know exactly what's going on inside you. So unless you know they're inside, you can't compare. You can't compare your inside to someone else's outside. And I think that's one of the biggest things we need to start looking at. Okay, what does stress do? So it, obviously these panic attacks, anxiety, that sort of stuff. But stress has, as we talked about with everything, stress has a huge impact on our hormones. It's all about our hormones and our body chemistry. So stress, there's good stress, as in that first slide. There's eustress and distress. Stress is necessary. It was necessary for our evolution. It's necessary for our survival. And our body has an amazing mechanism. It's the stress response, the fight or flight response that we have. Our body has an amazing mechanism in our system to handle stress. The problem is it's designed to handle little tiny bouts of stress. like when a tiger chases you, or you're having to run from something, or you're having to survive a sort of some fire, sort of the olden days reason for stress. Nowadays, it's constant, never-ending stress. And what happens when we have stress is that our adrenal glands fire off epinephrine and norepinephrine. So everyone, that adrenaline that you get, right? So your blood pressure goes up, your cortisol goes up, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, so that your blood glucose goes up. You actually shunt blood away from your stomach into your limbs. Your blood pressure goes up so you can get more oxygen into your system, because your body's preparing you to fight or flee, right? Fight or flight. So if you have a stressful situation and then you take that epinephrine, norepinephrine, and you go with it, you're using that up, right? You're using it. So what happens nowadays is we have a stressful situation, and then our body doesn't use any of that. It just sits sort of bathes in those chemicals, and none of that gets used. There's two types of systems, our fight or flight and our rest and digest. And we're either in one or in the other. We should be spending the majority of our lives in rest and digest. Right now, we should just be resting and digestion. All our blood flow should be in our stomach, not in our limbs, maybe me a little bit more because I'm up here speaking, but we want to live in that rest and digest phase, not the fight or flight phase. But what's happening is most of the time we're living in this fight or flight. Cortisol is a big one that we want to avoid, especially when I make a statement like I did tonight when saying stress makes you fat. It makes you fat because you're releasing cortisol. And cortisol is this chronic, it's a wonderful hormone, we really need it. It's what wakes us up in the morning. You get a cortisol surge. So cortisol should be really high in the morning, and then throughout the day, it should be slowly decreasing throughout the day. What happens to a lot of people is that the cortisol raises us up in the morning and then it dips down. And then we get a lot of people get a second spike sort of right before bed, and they're exhausted, but they get this sort of tired and wired kind of state. It's really, really common. All of us have probably, well, you have pulled all-nighters, and your body's exhausted, but you can't sleep, right? That's your stress hormones kicking in, because you're not going to sleep when you have stress hormones, because your body thinks it's under stress. If you fall asleep, you're going to die. So even though your brain logically thinks I need to be sleeping, it's under stress because of the lack of sleep. So it's just this hormonal snowball that starts to happen and really, really causes a lot of problems. So let's talk about cortisol. Is that good? And literally, I don't know if they got that from that, because literally, cortisol is your sugar. Stress causes your cortisol to be released, and basically it's like eating a whole bunch of dessert, because it mobilizes your sugar, because your body thinks that you're going to use it, but then we don't use it, so it needs to be stored. So then you get these sugar cravings because your insulin comes up, right? Remember that whole lecture we did on insulin? And how do you feel? And now we're talking sort of a chronic state. Constant stress, constant trigger, constant increase in our blood glucose, constant increase in our insulin, because our insulin is trying to deal with this increased blood glucose, because we're not using it. We're not sprinting, we're not running, we're not doing this sort of stuff. We've got this constant cortisol, constant insulin, and then we feel like crap all the time, right? Because now we're back to that whole issue with insulin, storing fat, storing fat, storing fat. And the problem with cortisol and stress hormones, it's that tummy area. So people with a lot of cortisol stress, a lack of sleep, is this tummy fat. Bigger bums and bigger tums is what happens with the cortisol stress. So this is what we call hormonal fat, is when you see it. Women, this is why women tend to put it on here, because women tend to be more sensitive to it. Their hormones are more complicated, all sorts of stuff is going on, and we tend to put fat on around our midsection. So if this is what's happening, it's that insulin cortisol sort of thing. Rush of glucose from tissues, insulin response, visceral fat, it's the toxic fat, right? The other thing that happens with cortisol, decreased immune function, right? You don't need your immune function in short, stressful periods. If you're being chased by a tiger, saber-toothed tiger back in the day, we don't need our long-term immunity. What's the point? because sorry, I just spat on you. Because now you need your long-term immunity. Go on, that's T4 cells. So your immune system doesn't matter. We don't need to mobilize our white blood cells and that sort of stuff at that point. We do need to mobilize our platelets and our clotting factor, right? So our immune system goes down, but our clotting factor and stuff, guess what? If you get bitten or scratched while you're fighting or fleeing, you need to have that available. So our clotting factor goes up, our blood pressure is going up, our immune system's going down. So our inflammatory reaction is increasing. No digestion, right? Why would you care about digesting your food when you're running, right? Endocrine function, brain function, memory. Your memory disappears completely, right? You're focused, but when you think back to a really stressful situation, you're kind of like your focus. You're not really there. You're not going to totally remember it. That's part of the reason. Like that's sort of the genius of the brain is that in a lot of these stressful situations you don't actually remember, and your overall well-being goes down in the presence of cortisol. So think about that situation: high blood pressure, sticky blood, decreased digestion, lots of inflammation. Who does that do? Lots of visceral fat. Who comes into mind when you think of situations like that? Anybody that you can think of?
Peter Griffin?
The people, basically that, but you say a man, basically that 50-year-old waiting for a heart attack guy, like drop dead of a heart attack. Like this is what chronic stress creates the exact same symptoms, the exact same situation that leads to cardiovascular disease. So it's often not high cholesterol, right? This poor cholesterol, and I know Jill talked about this poor little cholesterol gets blamed, and the cholesterol is just trying to fix everything. That's all this damage from the higher blood pressure and the inflammation because of the glucose and the insulin, and poor little cholesterol is getting blamed because it's trying to do its job, where the real damage is coming because of this increased blood pressure, the cortisol, the insulin, all this sort of hormonal stuff from the stress. It's like blaming the firefighters for the fire. It's like, hey, you guys show up every time there's a fire. You must be setting this fire. Like it's really backwards. Or people also use the analogy of rats at a dump. You rats are always, it's the rats. It's rats that are causing the garbage. It's not. They're there cleaning things up. The cholesterol's there just cleaning things up. So this chronic stress, and then our doctors are being aware of it. Oh, it's stress. It's stress. It's stress. But they're never really going further as like, okay, let's figure this out. And the hormonal response, the chemical response of stress is really what we need to start looking at. Any questions so far as I'm going along? So we know sort of the hormonal effect of stress. I'm going to revisit that. Yeah, it's good. So coping with stress. We've got to figure this. We really do have to figure this out. And what can we do? So I like this. This is a funny little comic. One of the biggest things we need to start looking at stress is people worry, and it's worrying, right? It's constant. Is there anything you're worrying about stuff? And I have a lot of young people in my practice who they're worrying, they're stressed. Okay, is there anything you can do about it? It's the first question you need to ask.
You can only worry about what you can control.
Exactly, like someone worrying about the weather for their wedding. Like. There's no point,
That's right.
Like there's nothing you can do about this. So or prepare. If the answer is no, I can't do anything about it, then you've got to figure out a way to just let it go. And if the answer is yes, then you've got to do something. I see more people who are totally stressed out and talking constantly like, oh, my kid's not sleeping. Oh, this, well then friggin' do something about it. Stop. You can't complaining about it is just getting way, way worse. So I really urge people tonight to take a step of let's stop complaining about things and begrudging everything and actually do something about it or let it go. The biggest example is people and their kids sleep, right? It's like, okay, do something about it then. Try and work towards fixing it or do something, or just let it go and be okay with the fact that you're not going to sleep for 2 years, sort of thing, or whatever, but just complaining about it isn't making it any better. Mind you, it is nice to get a group of people together and wallow in each other's pity for a little while, because it is. They do actually show that women's groups and these groups really actually help women. One of the way women handle stress is to talk about it, to talk things out. Men who tend to handle stress a little bit better, they go and either retreat or they go and do something they'll go for a run or they'll do something physical to handle it. Women talk. So it is good to talk about these sorts of things, unless you have someone like me there, I'm like, just shut up and do something, you know? Setting goals is really a really nice way to sort of manage things. Like seeing where you're gonna go is a really nice way to manage your stress. Like picturing yourself there, picturing yourself what you want, where you want to be, because then you can sort of set up a plan. Just scattering all over the place is quite stressful. Setting a goal and making a plan is great. Again, picturing yourself, power of the positive. I think this is so huge. Like there's a glass is half full or glass is half empty. The people who the glass is half full, that always they live longer. Research shows it. Like it's way easier. And if you are a negative person, try and just find one day when you're gonna try and catch yourself and just try and see the positive and just try and see the other side. And it's amazing the difference. My patients who come in who are the like, oh my God, it's like seriously, I had people complaining to me today about the weather, right? Same people that were complaining about the weather in the winter, and same people, you know, like there's just no like. There's no being happy about anything. We need to just sort of turn that coin a little bit. Supplements, Dr. Murphy's going to come next week and talk about some of the supplements. Sometimes the hormonal cascade has gotten so out of control that a supplement is necessary. And supplements are just that. Like they're not, I'm really not big on not fixing anything and not changing anything and then taking a supplement just to fix your hormones. I think you need to change your diet, change everything you possibly can. Supplement yourself if you need to, temporarily, just to give you that boost or that supplementing your body's function, and then ideally your body's function can take over. The hormone supplements or the melatonin, all these, melatonin, that sort of thing for sleep, stress, that sort of thing. Jill has a great supplement that she uses for, this tired and wired situation, because you can get into this tired and wired situation and you can't get out, right? You just get more exhausted, more cortisol, more stress, less sleep. Like as I said, it sort of snowballs. So there's a time and a place, but I don't think they should be used as a forever thing. Next week we're going to talk about supplements. One of them that I talk about is like a fish oil supplement. We only need that because we're not eating enough grass-fed beef and we're not getting enough omega-3s in our diet. We're getting too many omega-6s. If we could switch that around, we wouldn't actually need a fish oil supplement. If we were eating fermented food, we wouldn't need probiotic supplement. Same with this sort of stuff. But if you're in a stressful situation and you can't control these things, then sometimes a supplement will help. But Dr. Murphy will address these. But it's way cheaper to look after your diet and your sleep than it is to take supplements for the rest of your life. I love this. Sorry, I can't. I have to go to the gym. I think we need to learn to say no. And just say no. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. I'm not going to do this. And I love that. Like, sorry, I can't. I have to go to the gym. Like that. If we could just say that, like, it's prioritizing too, right? Like that's the other point of this. Is just. My husband exercises all the time. It's a priority, but he schedules it in. It's just a schedule. I never miss work. I'm always here. I'm always here on time. I'm always here. It doesn't interfere with my life because it's scheduled. It's what it is. So if something's really important to you, it needs to be scheduled in. If it's important to you to have healthy meals, you need to schedule time to cook. It has to be scheduled in. So you need to think of the things that are important to you and schedule them into your day. And I love that. Sorry, I can't. I have to go to the gym. Okay, one of the best ways to cope with stress is to get proper sleep. So let's zip through that. I like that picture. I'm getting stuffed up again. Sleep and your hormones. So again, it's all about hormones. This whole 8 weeks is all about hormones. And, I'm not big on just taking a hormone supplement to fix the hormone problem, right? There is an amazing book out. I love it. Her name's Dr. Sarah Gottfried. And I've got, Patrick, it's right behind you. Can you grab that? It's sitting on the desk. We're going on the desk chair. Don't know the difference. This is amazing. She's a gynecologist, and she's, really well educated, Harvard sort of thing. And it's an amazing book. You will love it. It gives way more understanding of hormones. I think every woman should read it. And it's called she goes through this Gottfried protocol. You guys can take a look at it. And it's all about hormones. It's all about, so she does a self-test to see where you're at. But what I want to make sure is that you don't just jump to taking a hormone supplement, right? Like there's a lot you can do for yourself. Just changing your diet, as she states in there, changing your diet can reverse pre-diabetic states within 48 hours. Like that's pretty neat. So let's talk about sleep. Melatonin. So the purpose of melatonin cools the body down and it promotes that deep, deep, deep sleep. So we'll talk about sleeping in I can't do much in the summer, but not sleeping with too hot a room with too many covers, because as your body heats up, the melatonin production goes down. So we want to keep the body core temperature nice and cool. If you get too hot, your melatonin gets messed up. It also gets messed up with light, and we'll talk about that. When you're sleeping, your growth hormone. So what happens is cortisol's high, growth hormone's low, and they should do this, like that, in the day. So when you're sleeping, your growth hormone is supposed to be going up. Now these all alter with age, and the growth hormone isn't quite as much, and that sort of stuff. But our growth hormone, that's our muscle building, our body repairing. One of the first things we ask when people aren't recovering from workouts, or they're not doing well with their adjustments, or they're not feeling that great, is like, are you sleeping? Because you heal when you sleep. If you're not sleeping, you can't heal. And that's because of the growth hormone response. So it really, really is important to get our sleep with our growth hormone. If you're not sleeping, like really, your diet goes off, because obviously your cortisol goes up, your melatonin, you're not producing melatonin. And there's just research that just came out talking about breast cancer and melatonin, people not sleeping enough and not getting enough sleep, and low amounts of melatonin and increased amounts of breast cancer. So if you're one of those people who sort of prides himself on little sleep, we are all human, and we all need the same amount of sleep. There's nobody out there who can, you're not that different from anybody else, that you don't need that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Leptin and ghrelin, I don't know if we talked about these that much. Leptin suppresses our appetite, ghrelin makes us hungry. Those get completely reversed. So I don't know if you've ever pulled an all-nighter, you're craving, you're hungry, you're eating. This is the nurses at the nurses station eating all night sort of thing, because their ghrelin is up and their leptin is down. We don't want that to happen, and then leptin resistance starts to happen, and it's a big problem. Nervous system balance, so fight, flight, rest, digest. We talked about this. When we don't sleep well, it's a stress on the body, and we start to go into that fight or flight response versus that rest and digest. So when we're in that fight or flight response, our immune system goes down, our digestion goes down, our blood clotting goes up, our blood pressure goes up, and our cortisol goes up, and then we get fat, we get stressed, we get heart disease, like all these things. It's kind of neat that like the solution to all this is just sleeping, right? But this is too, like we see children who don't sleep, and your mother, or we always said, like, get some sleep because you're getting sick. Well, it's because it puts you in that rest and digest. You get your growth hormone, and you're healing at night, but also too, you're not getting into that fight or flight system where your immune system drops. So chronically sleep deprived people have a low immune system. Cortisol, again, we're right back to cortisol. Your stress hormone fuels your appetite for sugar. So you're just going to be starting to crave sugar. It's a downward spiral. Natalie at Go Green Baby keeps trying to get me to do this. I think I mentioned this. She keeps wanting me to do this 8-week challenge for postpartum women. And I'm like, all I would have to say to them is get sleep. And they can't get sleep. They have newborn babies. Like, see me in 2 years and then we'll fix everything. Like, the only solution, postpartum women, it's really hard to lose weight. It's really hard. A lot of them are trying to exercise. They shouldn't be exercising because that causes more cortisol to be released, more stress hormone. They just need to sleep, and they need to sleep when their baby's sleeping, not just for the first 6 weeks, but they need to be napping, they need to be sleeping, they need to be taking care of themselves. And they're constantly craving sugar because of the lack of sleep. Sleep hormones, again, insulin. Only a few nights can alter your glucose tolerance. So when you're not sleeping well, your sugar cravings will go up, and your ability to handle glucose will, remember how we were saying your glucose tolerance, if you do the sprinting, your glucose, you can take more in. You'll see these triathletes who can actually, these people who can seem to be able to eat a lot of carbs and still stay lean. It's because they have a higher glucose tolerance. They can take more in, and their glycogen stores, they can handle it into their liver, into their muscles. Your glucose tolerance completely goes down after you're losing sleep. So you're craving it, you're not handling it very well, insulin has to go up, and we all know that when you're bathed in insulin, you feel like crap, you can't exercise, you can't do anything. So does everybody get that sleep is really important? Really, really important. So important. few questions to ask to find out if you're sleep deprived. Do you fall asleep as soon as your head hits the pillow? Like, are you just, these questions are inappropriate for you.
Actually, I'm not,
working.
I was that person
Yeah,
before I started this,
yeah.
but I'm not anymore.
Good. It's probably because you're balancing things out, right? Your hormones, and you can regulate your hormones on either end, right? Like you kind of need to do both. But if you're eating well and you're not like spiking your insulin all day, which also has an effect on cortisol, thyroid, all that sort of stuff, your adrenals, all of that, which affect, you know, your epinephrine, norepinephrine, then you can get it with your sleep, and you can get it with your sleep feeds. They both feed into each other. So as soon as do you fall asleep as soon as your head hits the pillow? Do you rely on an alarm clock to wake you up? Because really, our cortisol should be waking us up. If we're really, if things are really working. Do you feel tired during the day? That could be lack of sleep. It could also be all the other diet, hormones, that sort of stuff. But feeling tired during the day is probably because you're being bathed in insulin because your sugar cravings and your cortisol and everything's all over the place. Do you tend to sleep more on weekends? This is, these people who have to catch up on weekends and they're just exhausted. I really feel like a lot of people, we're not experiencing life because we're just getting through the weekend and we're just sleeping all weekend because we're just so exhausted. Like really, you should almost be getting up at the same time. It's nice to sleep in and relax, but we should almost be waking up at the same time. Really, we should be, for sort of healthy sleep patterns, going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, that routine, regardless of what day of week it is, that sort of thing. Just
So when you're talking about cortisol waking you up in the morning,
Yeah.
is that what causes you to wake up in the middle of the night too?
It could be.
Just-
It very well could be. Yeah. Or your melatonin's, you're not getting into the deep sleep because the melatonin's a bit messed up, that sort of stuff. There's lots of things that
I like to say it's
that
in hot
could
flashes.
be. Well, and exactly, and then it's true though, because that's a whole hormonal thing, but I bet you she addresses that in that book. And it's just because it's all hormones, right?
I used to wake up like I would say easily 6-7 times a night.
But this is also shift work too,
And
so everything is messed.
And now I probably only maybe wake up once and not every night.
Right, it's great, it's great. And that just feeds into itself. It's, again, the bad stuff snowballs, but so does the good, right? Like it all snowballs together. Sleep 101, okay. We want to sleep in complete darkness. Complete darkness. Melatonin, your pineal gland, circadian rhythm, it affects everything, right? So, not just a mask. People sometimes like, oh, I'm just going to put a mask over my eyes. It's when light hits your skin. And even if it hits your skin, it's going to cause your pineal gland to secrete melatonin. So we don't, no light at all at night. Complete darkness. That means getting rid of like all the little tiny lights that are on our alarms, on our VCRs, not VCRs, DVD players, sorry. I'm really old. 8-track player. So all those little lights, like even from your iPhone, your computer light, that sort of stuff, all has to be covered up. Do you guys ever know when you go to the hotel and they have that like the sprinkler system light? It just drives me. So I'm always like, trying to hook something over top of that. With no light, really, and then in the summertime it's harder. You want those complete blackout kind of blinds and stuff like that. Really, really important because it messes with your hormones. Not to have complete darkness. If you have to wake up to pee at night, don't turn the lights on. You need to just get up and go into the bath. Try it, because as soon as you flick those lights on, your melatonin production is done. Because we're not we weren't put on this earth designed with electrification, right? Like the body doesn't have really a response for light other than it's sunlight and it's daytime and we need to wake up, right? So this is the problem since the invention of the light bulb. Sleep nude. This is supposed to really, again with the whole melatonin thing, it's supposed to be the most natural way to sleep and much healthier, and it helps you regulate your temperature a lot better. Regular sleeping hours, so we're talking about getting to bed by 11. I would even say 10, but 11, and regular sleeping hours. If you're all over the place, how do you expect your hormones to balance themselves, right? Because you're really supposed to have this, this shift throughout the day, and melatonin sort of peaks and comes down. But if it's every night is different situation, how do you expect your body to ever regulate itself? So you need to try and get the regular sleeping hours as much as possible. 7 to 9 hours a night. again, remember that we're animals and we all need the same thing. We all need oxygen, we all need water, we all need protein, we all need fat, we all need carbs, we all need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. We really do need it. And look at the rest. If you take a look at the rest of the sort of animal kingdom, like a lion full of muscle, they sleep all day, right? Like they sleep, they really do sleep a lot. I think that we as a society really, we put a lack of importance on sleep and importance on like, I'm successful if I don't sleep, I'm successful if I have this great job and I don't need that much sleep, go, 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 go. But we see the results of those people, right? And the heart attacks at 50 and the high blood pressure and the cholesterol meds that everyone's on and this sort of stuff. And we know the results of that lack of sleep. So we all need that sleep, it's so important. Other countries where they're napping during the day and a lot of these communities, they get their work done and then they rest and they play and they relax. It's not a sign of weakness. It will help you age better. Turn off electronics. And this goes for especially if you have children who are really having a hard time sleeping, there's a ton of research that after dinner time, there should be no electronics at all, nothing, because it really affects their sleep, it affects our sleep. I've got this thing on my laptop, it's called Flux, and it drives me crazy because at night if I'm on my computer when I'm in my bed, which is really unhealthy, we shouldn't be doing that, but if I am, the lighting, it goes down as the light goes down, so my computer isn't as bright. So I think it's called Flux, F-L-U-X, you can look at it, it's just a little thing you can install on your computer that as the outside light starts to dim down, your computer it changes from a blue light to a red light. So it's not that blue light that's stimulating, it's red light. I don't know that much about sleep waves and light, but apparently the red light is soothing and helps you sleep, something like that. And the blue light's really, really not good for our circadian rhythm. So turning off electronics ideally, or putting that Flux onto your computer. Keep lighting dim in the evening. So when our kids were really little, we used to sort of turn off all the lights, do candles, really low light, just to try and get them to start winding down to make sure that sort of cortisol was coming down, and the melatonin would start coming up, and the growth hormone and that sort of stuff. One of the absolute best things you can do for your health and for your circadian rhythm is as soon as you wake up, get outside and get that sunlight into your eyes, onto your skin, and onto your face. It'll make a huge difference in your day, and that will help reset your circadian rhythm. I don't know how many of you have been on a canoe trip, but about 3 or 4 or 5 days into your canoe trip, you're waking up early, you're going to bed super early, and the energy's there, right? Your sleep gets to be really good, other than sleeping on the lumps and the stumps and stuff like that. But it's because the first thing you wake up, you're seeing that sunlight. So seeing the sun rise and then watching the sun set is really, really effective, quick way to reset your circadian rhythm. It's not saying you have to go to bed when the sun sets. It's just saying watching it set and watching it rise. If you have children who sleep badly, this is one of the best things you can do for them, is resetting that circadian rhythm and have them actually go watch the sunset and watch it rise. It really, really helps. Few more things. So darkest spots, some of these I've already I've listed. Low lighting. They talk about electromagnetic fields and stuff like that, like having things plugged in beside your bed. It's supposed to be really disturbing for our sleep. I don't know. I mean, you can take some of these. There's no way we're going to be able to implement all of these, but just choose a few of them. Turning the TV off, again, it's really, all the research says that we shouldn't be watching TV before bed. One, because it's really, really stimulating, but watching the news before bed, that's the worst. We should sort of be reading or journaling or doing something. And reading, I don't know about those, the easy readers, if they have that, what kind of light they're emitting, but they're not the EVs, but the computer readers, the Kobos and stuff like that. I don't know what kind of light they're emitting, and I don't know. Pardon?
Kobos aren't backlit.
They're not backlit, so it's fine.
Not
Yeah. They bother my eyes. I don't know why I can't read them, but they should be fine. I think they've probably, looked at all those things. Your bedroom should be for one of two things, right? And if people sort of watch TV, they watch movies, they sort of have parties, they do all this other stuff, but our bedroom is for two things, really. Decluttering, having too much crap around your sleep, and when you're going to sleep, your subconscious kind of sees all the things that you have, like our laundry of socks that we have to deal with. Having too many things in your room, you really want your room just for sleeping. Good bedding. Bedroom 21 to 20 degrees, it's going to be hard to do soon. Sugar snacks before you go to bed, right? What's that going to do, right? Insulin you know, all that sort of stuff, cortisol, stress response. So we don't want to be doing that. We want to make sure, because that's going to affect our growth hormone and our cortisol again. Fluids 2 hours before bed. That's if you're, you know, if you're getting up constantly at night. White noise is always good, like a fan, that sort of stuff. Alarm clocks, that's just in the morning. That's because in the morning, a loud alarm clock jolting you up. It's not your cortisol, it's your epinephrine and your stress hormone that's getting you up out of bed. Not a good way to start your day. Your adrenals are already just, you know, charging ahead. Mattresses, exercise. Some people can't exercise right before bed. It just gets them, gets them things going too much. Sometimes, I'm skipping over a couple of shower bath, that sort of thing. Caffeine, no caffeine after 1 o'clock is a big one. It's a really important one. Caffeine has a half-life of 8 hours. So it takes that long for it to get out of your system. So if by 9 o'clock, if you have it past 1 o'clock, by 9 o'clock you still have caffeine in your system. So that's a big one. I've been trying to, when I was sort of trying to get my sleep back on schedule, I really try not to have any kind of caffeine after 1 o'clock. Napping too. Well, you'll notice it with children. If they nap, sometimes if they don't need that nap anymore, they can't go to sleep at night. Sometimes it's the same thing with adults. If you are napping, you might affect your sleep that night. So what you have to do to get your sleep on track is not so much go to bed early and get it that way. It's the morning. You have to reset it. You have to get up early. You have to drag yourself those first couple of mornings. Reset it with your morning, and then you're going to be so tired you're going to fall asleep easier at night. Because a lot of times people try and change it at night. They just try to go to bed early, and then they don't sleep. And then they're just in the same situation. So it's that morning to reset someone's sleep. It's really getting them up early in the morning to get them reset for the night. 2 fantastic books. Lights Out is great. It's a really good, and it's all, like Lights Out's all about sugar, all about the hormone response, everything that we've been talking about in both those books. They're really, they're great. Great books. Did everybody write those down? I don't even know if there's other books by that, just if you don't get the author. All right, there we go. Sleep yourself to health. And that's why I always talk about, in a postpartum group or any group, if you're feeling stressed, you should be sleeping, not exercising. Too much exercise, right? Too much cortisol, too much, really, like, sleep is, Pete would hate for me to say this, but sleep is more important than exercise. Exercise, I'm not denouncing, like, exercise is important, obviously, and we know all that. We know that we need to be strong. We've done the lectures, all that sort of stuff. But if you're not sleeping, there's no point in exercising, because exercising is just adding more stress into your system, and you're snowballing in this direction versus getting those good hormones and getting things on track. If you don't sleep, you need sugar, then you add more exercise to that stress. There's an example, actually she uses in her book, who's healthier, the marathon runner or the Tibetan monk? Right, who lives longer, right? And the Tibetan monk who just sits there all day, I don't know what they do. And the marathoner, lots of marathoners have died, high cholesterol, heart attacks, all that sort of stuff. It can be this constant stress. So if you're not sleeping and not eating well, exercise shouldn't be in there. Exercise is almost like a privilege. And what will come with better sleep and better eating patterns is the desire to exercise. You should want to exercise. You'll want to move your body. I remember this woman doing the challenge before just saying, like, I woke up one day and I suddenly, for the first time in my life, wanted to move and run. Like, she had been feeling like crap for years and years and years, and all of a sudden, and she's a full-on exerciser now. She loves it, but she really respects her sleep and her food cravings and stuff like that. Any questions?